The Russian winter of 1916 did not merely arrive. It seized the imperial capital in a vice of iron and ice. The city of Petrograd, a name chosen to slough off its German sound, lay silent and frozen under a black, starless sky. The war was going badly. The people were hungry, and in the palaces of the powerful, a desperate, terrible idea was taking shape. It was just past midnight on December 29th. The temperature hung far below freezing. The elegant streets were empty, every sensible soul huddled behind thick walls, seeking warmth, seeking sleep, seeking escape. But in the opulent Moika Palace, the home of Prince Felix Yusupov, there was no sleep. Light blazed from a single basement window. Inside, a party was being prepared. A party for one. The guest of honor was on his way. And the final touches were not decorations, but preparations. A plate of elegant pink cakes, bottles of rich Madeira wine, and a substance ground into a fine, bitter powder, potassium cyanide. The trap was set. To understand why these men, these nobles, these princes of the realm, would conspire to commit such a bloody act, you must first understand the man they meant to kill. His story is not a rise to power. It is a dark fairy tale. Grigory Rasputin was born to dirt and poverty in a remote Siberian village. For 28 years, his life was a predictable cycle of planting, harvesting, and survival. He married. He had children. He was illiterate. And then something changed. A religious fever consumed him. He left his family without a backward glance, becoming a Stranik, a holy wanderer. He walked across the vastness of Russia, and a legend began to walk with him. Whispers of a man with piercing, hypnotic eyes, a man who could pray away illness, a man who knew the secrets of the soul. He preached a dangerous doctrine. To truly know God, one must first know sin. It was a philosophy that conveniently justified a growing appetite for wine and women. By 1905, the whispers had reached the highest throne in the land. The Tsarina Alexandra was desperate. Her only son, Alexei, the heir to the Russian Empire, suffered from hemophilia. A simple bruise could mean an agonizing, days-long internal bleed. The best doctors in Europe were powerless. In her despair, she turned to the mystic from Siberia. The scene in the boy's bedchamber is shrouded in myth. Some say Rasputin simply prayed. Others say he hypnotized the child with his intense gaze. He may have done nothing more than order the doctors to stop giving him aspirin, a blood thinner. But the boy improved. To a mother's heart, it was a miracle. To Rasputin, it was the key to the empire. He was it. The unkempt peasant became the most powerful man in Russia. He called the Tsar and Tsarina Papa and Mama. He advised on ministers, on policy, on the war. His influence was absolute. But when the palace doors closed, the holy man vanished. In his place was a creature of vice. Secret police reports detail a life of staggering debauchery, drunken orgies that lasted for days, public scandals, affairs with scores of society women who saw him as a path to salvation through sin. The Russian people, sensing the decay at the heart of power, seethed. The nobility plotted. This filthy peasant, this devil, was destroying centuries of tradition. He had to be removed. The spark came in November 1916. In the Duma, the fiery politician Vladimir Purishkevich gave a speech that shook the chamber. "The government is a ghost," he screamed. "The true ministers are Grishka Rasputin and the Empress." Sitting in the audience, a young, vain aristocrat named Prince Felix Yusupov felt a jolt of purpose. He found Purishkevich afterward. The two men from opposite worlds shared a single fanatical goal. They would save Russia. They would kill Rasputin. They assembled their conspiracy. Yusupov, the aristocrat, Purishkevich, the politician, Grand Duke Dmitry Pavlovich, the Tsar's own cousin, Dr. Stanislaus de Lazavert, and Lieutenant Sergei Sukotin. Their plan, hatched on Purishkevich's private train, was chilling in its detail. Yusupov would be the bait. He feigned illness, visiting Rasputin for healing. He played the fascinated acolyte. And Rasputin, ever the predator, took the bait, constantly asking about Yusupov's beautiful wife, Irina. Yusupov would never let the monster near his wife, but he would use her as the lure. He invited Rasputin to a party, a small, intimate gathering. Irina would be there. Rasputin, the ultimate ladies' man, greedily accepted. The plan was set. The palace basement was chosen for its soundproof walls. The poison was procured. The route to dispose of the body to a hole in the ice of the Neva River was mapped. Every second was accounted for. They were ready. The night was brutally cold. The conspirators gathered at the Moika Palace, their nerves stretched taut. In an upstairs room, Dr. Lazavert pulled on leather gloves, his hands trembling. He grated the cyanide crystals. The sound was like tiny bones breaking. He carefully folded the powder into the cream of the cakes. He poured it into the dark wine. The air grew thick with the scent of almonds. A gramophone was wound up. The jaunty American tune Yankee Doodle Dandy scratched out, a grotesque soundtrack for the horror to come. It was meant to fool anyone listening into believing a joyful party was underway. Just after midnight, Yusupov and Dr. Lazavert, now disguised as a chauffeur, went out into the freezing night to collect their guest. Rasputin was waiting. He had dressed in his finest silk shirt, his boots polished to a high shine. He had even told his daughter he was off to meet the beautiful Irina Yusupova. He was in a splendid mood. The car ride was quiet. They arrived at the palace. Yusupov led Rasputin down the curved stone staircase to the basement dining room. The air was close, the light from the fireplace casting long, dancing shadows. Upstairs, the other conspirators pressed their ears to the floor. All they could hear was the muffled murmur of conversation and the cheerful, mocking strain of the gramophone. Time stretched. Yusupov offered the cakes. Rasputin refused. He seemed uneasy. He eyed the room. Finally, he took one. Then another. He drank a glass of the poisoned wine. The conspirators above waited for the thud. It did not come. Another glass. Then another. An hour passed. Rasputin was not seizing. He was not dying. He was merely getting drunk, growing impatient, asking when he would finally meet the ladies. The cyanide was having no effect. A frantic Yusupov ran upstairs, his face pale. "It's not working," he hissed. "He's eaten everything, he's drunk the wine and nothing." A superstitious terror filled the room. The stories were true. The man was protected by the devil himself. Yusupov made a decision. He took Grand Duke Dmitri's revolver. He descended back into the lion's den. The men upstairs heard the low murmur of conversation resume. And then, bang, a single unmistakable gunshot echoed through the stone foundations. A moment of dead silence. Then, the sound of a heavy body hitting the floor. The conspirators rushed down. Rasputin lay on his back, a dark red bloom spreading across his silk shirt. His eyes were open, staring at nothing. A pulse was checked. None was found. It was done. Relief washed over them. They began to clean. But Yusupov, overcome by hysterical guilt, was led upstairs to recover. That's when it happened. Purishkevich was alone in the room, gathering Rasputin's coat. He heard a sound, a low, wet gurgle. He turned, and he saw it. One of Rasputin's eyes twitched, then the other. They focused on Purishkevich. With a sound that was not human, a guttural, bloody roar. Rasputin surged up from the floor. Foam and blood poured from his mouth. His face was a mask of demonic fury. He lunged at the utterly paralyzed Purishkevich, tearing the epaulette from his uniform. Then he turned and stumbled up the stairs out into the snowy courtyard. "Felix," he bellowed into the frozen night, his voice raw and terrible. "Felix, I will tell everything to the Empress." Purishkevich, snapping out of his trance, grabbed his pistol and gave chase. Two wild shots rang out, missing their target. Rasputin was fumbling with the heavy iron gate latch, his bloody fingers slipping. Purishkevich stopped. He planted his feet. He took aim. Crack, crack. The first bullet hit Rasputin in the back. The second struck his head. He crumpled into the snow, finally truly still. The clean, clinical assassination was now a bloody, chaotic mess. His body lay in the open courtyard. In a frenzy, the conspirators wrapped the corpse in a curtain, loaded it into a car, and drove to the Petrovsky Bridge. Weights were tied to his ankles and wrists. They shoved the bundle through a hole in the ice into the black, freezing water below. They had killed him, but their work was sloppy. Blood stained the snow. A boot was left behind. 2 days later, police found blood on the bridge rails. Soon after, Rasputin's body was found frozen under the ice. An autopsy would later reveal a final horrifying detail. There was water in his lungs. Grigory Rasputin, shot, poisoned, and beaten, was still alive when he hit the water. The conspirators were exposed, but their punishment was light: exile, a brief house arrest. The Tsar, weakened and afraid, could not punish the men who had killed the monster. But it was too late. The act they believed would save Russia merely hastened its end. The revolution was coming, and the bloody, botched murder of the mad monk was its dark and fitting overture. The devil was dead, but the empire he haunted would soon follow him into the grave.